Hey there, BuckTube. More like you lucky DuckTube, because today you can see the vague outline of Beefy's pitiful cone. Yeah, there he is. He's on the mend. He's doing very well. Thank you for asking. Welcome to another episode of Buck's Books. Today, the book I would like to talk to you about is called Mastery, The Keys to Success and Long-Term Fulfillment by George Leonard, author of The Way of Aikido, and, coincidentally, someone who looks very much like Larry David if he wasn't wearing glasses. But we're not gonna... So I walked in not knowing quite what to expect, figuring it was going to be like one of those martial art books like Zen and the Martial Arts, which is a great book. If you haven't read it and you care about Zen or the martial arts, it's a good idea to read Zen and the Martial Arts. Or like, Zen and Archery, I guess. There are a bunch of other ones like that don't have Zen in it. I don't care for Bruce Lee books, honestly. Like, I understand Bruce Lee is the man or whatever, but every book I've read that was about Bruce Lee, or like the writings of the dragon or whatever it was, the striking thoughts, they were all unpleasant. They were all pretty cringe. I mean, he was a phenomenal actor and a great martial artist and everything, but it's just, and he got his own little kundo. I know all that, and I'm not here to disparage Bruce Lee in any way. The books are all just bad. Nothing I can do about it. This book was pretty good, all told. You alright? You'll be alright. I don't care about Aikido. When I was but a little buck, I believe at that point I would have been referred to as a fawn. Fawn? Or a foal? Are fawns gendered? They're not. So yeah, I would have been a fawn. Foals are baby horses, which it can be argued. But this time, just for narrative cohesion, we'll say I would have been referred to as a little fawn. I was in Tangsudo Murakwan. So that is a type of Korean karate. And it was okay, but karate is... In retrospect, karate is not a very useful art. It's more useful than not knowing anything. Like, if you put someone who doesn't know anything against someone with a black belt in karate, the black belt in karate will probably win, just because of practice. But it's not practical in that if you look at MMA, or if you look in anywhere people actually fight, you're not going to see any top-tier karate practitioners. And we were all kind of hornswoggled about that. We were convinced that we would by Mr. Miyagi, you know. And to some degree we still are, because I hear Cobra Kai has made a comeback, but I don't have time to watch it. I barely have time to do this. I'm not going to be watching Cobra Kai. Although I do hear it's good. So, I did that for a couple of years. Never made black belt. Simply didn't have the discipline. And then I built discipline, and I wound up in... more recently, Muay Thai, and I really enjoyed Muay Thai. I went to a retreat in Thailand. I enjoyed Muay Thai so much, and that was fun and very dirty. Everything about it was very dirty, but it was a life experience. Like, I wouldn't trade it for less food poisoning than I got, but I got food poisoning a lot in Thailand. So, like, if you get the chance, maybe take a tourist package and don't just, like, eat squid from the side of the road. That's on me. Like, there's no one to blame but myself. I was the one who was eating squid fried rice on the side of the road, and yes, of course that gave me food poisoning. In any event, I enjoy Muay Thai. I still practice it. I have a heavy bag over there. You're never going to see it because I live in fear that if I move the camera, then I'm never going to get it right back in the right place again. That's why I don't like move it around in order for you to see Beefton or the rest of my palatial estate or my heavy bag. But I do have one, and I do use it to keep the Muay Thai sharp. So I like martial arts. It's been a part of my life since I was a teenager, and I'm trying to keep it as such. I don't like Aikido because Aikido is more of one of the philosophies. I'm not here to say that it doesn't work to its own end. I don't like the ones where you roll around on mats, honestly. I was never a big mat rolling guy. I like striking arts. But Aikido is one of the ones where you roll around on mats, and that's fine if you like rolling around on mats. And Aikido is one of the ones where you displace energy non-lethally, just when you'd do a wrist flip, like judo. And again, very effective versus things that aren't boxing or wrestling or jiu-jitsu. I'm not here to disparage any of those. Those are just the most practical arts, unless you're counting something like Krav Maga that's just made to kill a guy. And I'm not. I'm really, when I'm talking about practical, I mean just like in a fight where murder is not something you're really expecting, or like even an MMA situation, because that's closest to pancreation at this point. So, despite all that, I think that his eyes are open and he's snoring. Phenomenal. I think that despite all of that, I think the approaches to the respective martial arts kind of apply across all domains. Like, the way you train for karate is the way you train for Muay Thai, is the way you train for Aikido, is the way you train for anything. You have to have the discipline, you have to have the humility, you have to have the focus, you have to walk in with the expectation, okay, I'm going to exhaustively practice these minute, specific changes in perfecting my form, until the point where I am like in 10th degree red dragon gup belt. And then I guess it's like Kung Fu Hustle, where you can turn into a frog man or whatever. I don't know. I don't know the end result. The end result, I think, is just the journey. The end result is, because you love this, you get really good at it. And that brings us into mastery. Without further ado, let's get into the book Mastery. And Mastery talks about how to train Aikido, but also how to do everything in life, because the tools for mastery applies to absolutely anything you dedicate your mind to. Any relationship, any career option, any academic pursuit, any personal project, anything that you focus on requires mastery to remain engaged in it. And he said that there tend to be 3 people who try to cheese their way through things and don't become on the path to mastery. So the path to mastery is very specific, and there are 7 tools to keep you on it. But there are 3 people who don't really observe, 3 types of people who make leaps and don't really observe the tools. And he calls them the hacker, the dabbler, and the obsessive. And I am the obsessive. And what the obsessive does is the obsessive goes real hard in the paint, just 3 classes a day, every day, trying to maximize the output, and eventually burns themselves out. And they're like, okay, well, no, I can't keep going at this pace. So they back off, and sometimes they back off so far that they fall off the path altogether and they never see any improvement. Historically, that has been my approach to most things. I come at it with 100% of effort, and if it does not immediately crumble, and sometimes it does, but if it does not, then I will continue to hit it full force until I am exhausted, and then the grapes are sour. But I've gotten better with that in recent years. Like, I still stay on it, as evidenced by how I'm still out here booktubing, The hacker, who learns a couple neat tricks and uses them to do a couple of leaps and bounds, and then keeps trying to learn neat tricks, but at some point there aren't any, you can't just keep learning neat tricks. At some point you gotta just do the work. And the hacker isn't super good with doing the work unless the work is flashy, unless the work is immediately optimizable. So the hacker does good, does all right, and then boom, spikes, and then they hit there, and then they drop off very slowly, and then they level, and then they just stay there unless they find another trick, and then maybe there's another hop, but usually there isn't, but you can only learn so many of them. And then our other guy is the Dabbler. And the Dabbler never really gets good. He's not serious about it. He's not interested in the path to mastery. He shows up and he puts in his time and he thinks it's kind of fun. And that's fine. That's fine for people. Like, if you just want to dabble in something. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how I have approached guitar. I'm like a lifetime intermediate guitar player because I know one scale and that's what I do. And it's effective. Like most music is in this scale anyway. But I'm never going to be a great guitar player unless I take it seriously, and I don't take it seriously. I dabble. So mastery is staying the course, doing the hard work, even if you don't feel like doing the hard work. It's not, you don't dabble, you don't hack, you don't obsess. I mean, it requires some level of obsession, but the point is that it's not outcome dependent. The path to mastery requires you to be continuing along the path regardless as to the outcome. The path is the destination. So the tools that our boy Leonard recommends is, first of all, the maintenance of physical fitness, which obviously totally on board with that. Let's go. And whenever that's the first rule of anything, yes, we are physical animals. We are supposed to be physically fit. That is our purpose. Our brain, the reason the brain. I ever tell you about the sea squirt? Sea squirt is an animal that lives in the ocean, and it has a brain, and it swims around. And then eventually it finds a place that seems like a good spot to anchor to, that has like a lot of nutrients and like an appropriate temperature. And it anchors, and it suctions onto the spot like a barnacle, and it locks on, and then it cannibalizes its own brain. Because now that it no longer has to move, it no longer needs a brain. It doesn't need to think anymore. So there's a direct correlation between the size and functionality of the brain and how many movements are necessary in the animal. And ours is enormous because we are the perfect generalist. We suck at everything. We're like the bard, jack of all trades, master of none. So we're not good at anything except endurance running, and let's be realistic. Statistically speaking, you're probably not good at that either. I know I'm not. But we were built for it. We can. And everything else we're bad at, but we're passable at. You know? Like, we can climb. We're not chimps. We're not goats. We can climb. We can swim. We're obviously not fish or dolphins. We can kind of swim. We can tumble. We're not like little catchapins or anything like that. But yeah, we can roll around a little bit. We can do all kinds of stuff. We can tear with our teeth, but our bite force is obviously outmatched by a guy like this. This gargoyle, you know. And that's after generations of inbreeding. Stop him from being a wolf. So we're supposed to move. We have to move. Movement is built into us. Physical fitness is a requirement for everything. Well, as far as I'm concerned. You need to at least try. So if that's tool 1, I'm on the hook. Let's go. 2, acknowledge the negative and accentuate the positive. That sounds like good advice. Denial doesn't help anybody. You got to acknowledge reality. And sometimes the reality has negativity to it, so you can't just pretend everything is going to be fine, because sometimes it's not going to be fine. Sometimes everything sucks. But, like, you can acknowledge that and not, everything sucks. You don't have to live there. You can just be like, okay, it's possible that everything will suck. However, here are the things that are good, and I'm leaning into those. That makes a good life. That makes you happy. I mean, the research shows that makes you happy. 3 is try telling the truth. This comes right back to getting rid of that denial. This comes back to acknowledging the reality of the situation, the reality of your circumstances, and owning up to your own stuff. Owning your own stuff. You know, this is... If you always tell the truth, you don't have to keep your story straight, and you demonstrate conducting yourself with integrity. You lead by example. It becomes inspirational to other people, because lying is sort of another thing that's built into the species. It is arguable that that's another reason that our brain became so big, or at least so complex. The social dynamics necessary for a mutually sexually selecting species. Excuse all of the evolutionary biology jargon. I just finished reading another book called How Women Got Their Curves and Other Just So Stories, and that is going to be reviewed shortly. It was very good, but now my brain is just sort of set in that mode. So, telling the truth. Nothing... If you are proud of yourself, if you are proud of the things you do, then you don't need to lie. If you conduct yourself with integrity and decency, you don't need to worry about lying. Because lying's a waste of time. Lying suggests that there's something you're afraid of, something that you're hiding. And generally speaking, you really don't have to do that to anybody but, like, the feds. And, like, even that's... I mean, I think it's a good idea. But that's more about them than you. 4. Honor but don't indulge your own dark side. Pretty straightforward. Again, all of these come back to... like, the first 2 through 4 seem to be about avoiding denial. Because if you pretend that you don't have that evil part in you, if you pretend that you don't have the Freudian id, then it will emerge, and it will do so undercover in a way that you won't even be able to recognize, let alone stop, and you will be horrified of the atrocities that you are capable of. So you need to own it. You need to be aware of it. You need to be like, okay, there are bad parts of me. There are things in me that I don't like copping to. That's the shadow. That's the Jungian shadow. We have that. And that's in there, and it wants things. And I don't like that it wants some of these things. But it does. And I can acknowledge that. Doesn't mean I'm going to go 100% into it. Doesn't mean that I'm just going to be 20 again. But that doesn't mean it needs to be starved either, because if you starve it for long enough, it goes feral, and it will slip its chain, and then you got to deal with that. So I think Rule 4 makes sense. Tool 4, they're not rules, they're tools. Tool 4 makes sense. Honor but don't indulge your own dark side if it can be avoided. 5, very straightforward. Set your priorities. You gotta figure out what's important. You gotta figure out what you're putting time toward. That way you can fill in what the rest of your time goes toward. That way that you use your time productively. Otherwise, you will not use your time productively, and then you'll just lay around being unproductive and whining about how you're unproductive and wishing that you could be better and blah, blah, blah. And then this will internalize the idea that you're not better, and then you won't like yourself, and then your self-esteem will slip, and blah. It just sucks. Everything about it sucks. So if all you got to do is get a schedule book and write things in it, that's like to figure out what you consider of value, what you consider to be priorities. There are worse ways to live. That's pretty good. And this ties into the next one. 6 is make commitments and take action. Again, once you got the schedule book, the commitment is already on paper. After that, all you got to do is shut up and do it. So 5 and 6, set your priorities, make commitments, take action. Easy stuff. What is important to me? What direction am I going to go in? What direction? We're aiming. Where am I going to aim? Make commitment. You knock back the arrow. You pull the string. Take action. You let it fly. That's it. Very straightforward. Beautiful. Beautiful advice. Beautiful way to live. And then 7, get on the path of mastery and stay on it. And the path of mastery, I know this seems kind of circular because the book is about mastery and these are all the tools for mastery. But 7, the path of mastery is just doing those first 6 things. And then sticking to it. Sticking to your word. Doing what you say you're going to do. You make a commitment and you're honest about it. It's like a very basic chivalric code. You make a commitment. You stick to the commitment. You take care of your body. You are positive to the best of your ability. However, you are not in denial of the evil in yourself or in the world. King Arthur couldn't do it any better. You know, that's solid. So, overall, I think the concepts that our boy George Leonard presented were very good, very valuable, very interesting. I don't care about Aikido. He talked about Aikido and also the Air Force a lot. I don't really care about the Air Force either, but he couldn't have known that. That's not on him, that's on me. If you care about Aikido, this book is probably phenomenal. If you like martial arts in general, there's something of use to you. Something of use to you in it. I really like the idea of the Path of Mastery. The tools, I think that it is a good way to live. I think that is the way that a person should live. No matter what you call these precepts. No matter how you frame them up. They're just about honesty and integrity and agency. What else is there? Good boy. All right. So that's Mastery. Let's give it 4 stars. 4 out of 5. 4 sounds good. And that's it for this one. Thanks for sticking around. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. If you somehow have not yet, you really should. Tell your friends. Do your friends read books? Tell your friends. Come on, we're into double digits. Let's just keep these numbers flying. Do you know how good it would be if I could just do this every day? If I could just read all the books and then talk about the books, and then a community showed up and started discussing the books, and we could be like, yeah, no, this book was good. No, this book was... It's like an ongoing book club that we could keep returning back to. I don't know. I think it could be a lot of fun. See if we can get that off the ground. Thanks for sticking around, fellas. I'll see you next time.